Evan Hale walked through the long hallway of the military ship Valiant Horizon with slow steps, trying to understand how quiet everything felt. For a ship carrying more than 1,000 people, the silence surprised him. The ship moved through space with a deep hum, steady and calm, and the lights on the walls shifted from blue to white in gentle waves. Every few seconds, he saw someone pass by him, some human, some alien, each wearing the same black and silver uniform of the Alliance Engineering Division. Evan adjusted the strap of his small toolkit on his shoulder. He was not afraid of the assignment. He had worked with machines since he was a teenager. He liked fixing things, and he was good at it. The real challenge for him was something else entirely. New faces, unfamiliar voices, and the pressure of working alongside people he had never met. It always took him a long time to feel comfortable. He stopped when he reached the door labeled Cabin 4B22. The door slid open before he even touched it. He stepped inside and blinked. The room was smaller than he expected, a narrow space with a desk, 2 lockers, and 1 bed. 1 bed, not a bunk bed, not 2 separate beds, just 1 wide bed placed against the left wall. He checked the room number again, thinking he had made a mistake. But no, it was correct. This was his cabin. He took 1 step back toward the hallway, but before he could leave, the door opened again. Someone else walked inside, with calm, steady footsteps. She was tall, almost a head taller than him, with smooth, violet-toned skin that shimmered faintly under the lights. Her hair was short and shaped in layered strands that shifted gently as she moved. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dim room, not bright enough to scare someone, just enough to catch attention. It was a normal trait for her species. She was Cyrillan. Her name was Lyra Venn, an engineer known for her precision and intelligence. Some people said she could rebuild a plasma engine in the dark. Evan had heard the stories but never thought he would work with someone like her. For a moment, they both stared at the bed. "This is cabin 4B22? She asked in a soft, calm voice. "Yes," Evan said, trying not to sound nervous. She walked toward the wall panel and placed her hand on it. The screen lit up with her assignment. It clearly showed her name, her rank, her engineering division, and under the section that listed her roommate, 1 line glowed, Evan Hale, Human Engineer Cabin 4B22. Lyra let out a very soft breath. It wasn't exactly a sigh, but close. "It seems they paired us," she said quietly. Evan rubbed the back of his neck. "I wasn't expecting this. I didn't think they meant sharing a single bed. The Alliance likes to push cooperation," she said. Her tone was gentle, not annoyed. "Perhaps they believe we will learn faster if we live in close proximity." He gave a weak smile. "I guess that's one way to do it." "They should have warned us," she replied, looking at the bed again with a neutral expression. "But it is not impossible." "We will adjust." Evan nodded quickly. "Yeah, we'll manage." Lyra placed her equipment case on the desk and began unpacking her tools. Each tool had a smooth, silver shine, shaped in elegant curves, unlike anything humans used. Evan watched her place them carefully on the small shelf above the desk. She worked with a quiet grace, her hands moving with confident precision. "You're organized," he said quietly. She paused and looked at him. "Organized? I mean, you place everything exactly in the right spot. Like you already knew where each tool would go." Lyra's faint glowing eyes softened. "Cyrillan engineers memorize workstation layouts. It is part of our training. It allows us to work faster. Humans usually just stack everything in a pile," he said with a small, nervous laugh. "Humans improvise well," she replied. "Your instinct is strong. Sometimes your quick decisions solve problems we cannot predict." He blinked. "Thank you. That means a lot." She nodded once and returned to her tools. Just then, a soft alarm beeped in the hallway. It wasn't loud, but its tone carried urgency. Lyra straightened immediately. "That is an engineering summons," she said. "Already?" Evan asked. "We just got here." "The ship does not wait," she said with a calm tone. They both left the cabin, and moved quickly through the corridors, descending 2 levels into the engineering decks. The deeper they went, the louder the ship's engine hum became. They reached the main engine bay, where several engineers hurried around a cluster of glowing plasma conduits. A tech pointed at the readings. The plasma temperatures were rising too fast. One wrong spark could cause a shutdown, and on a ship this size, a shutdown could be dangerous. Lyra stepped forward. "What is the temperature slope?" "Climbing fast," the human tech said. "But not evenly." Evan checked the screen. "Look here. Conduit D is dropping in temperature." "That should not happen," Lyra said. "Unless the calibration ring slipped." Evan crouched beside the conduit. "I can check it." Lyra looked at him closely, as if evaluating his confidence. "Cyrillin calibrations are delicate. I'll be careful," he said. After a short pause, she nodded. "I will stabilize the flow. You fix the ring." They moved quickly. Lyra gave instructions to the other techs, her voice firm but calm. Evan crawled into the narrow access shaft behind the conduit. Feeling the warm air brush against his face, he reached the calibration ring and immediately saw the problem. It was tilted at an angle, not locked properly. He tried to adjust it. "Hold the flow steady," he called out. "I am on it," Lyra answered. When he looked through the small opening, he saw her face focused and steady. Her hands moved across the control panel as she adjusted power levels and redirected energy. The glow in her eyes brightened slightly. Even in the middle of danger, she looked calm. Evan tightened the ring and snapped it back into place. The moment it locked, the plasma readings returned to normal. The tension in the room eased. Lyra turned toward him. "Well done. You too," he said, smiling. "We make a good team already." She gave a quiet nod. "It seems the Alliance paired us for a reason." They walked back to their cabin with a more comfortable silence between them. At first, the room still felt small. But now it didn't feel as awkward. The shared danger had created something that wasn't there before, some kind of trust. Evan placed his toolkit on the desk and looked at the bed again. "We, should talk about how we're going to sleep." Lyra stepped closer to the bed and placed her hand on the blanket as if studying the texture like a new piece of equipment. "It is soft. Humans like soft things," Evan said quietly. "We prefer firm surfaces," she replied. "But adaptations can be made." He wasn't sure if she was joking or being serious, but the gentle tone in her voice made him relax. She looked at him again. "We do not need to make this complicated. We can share the space. We set boundaries. We sleep. It is simple." Evan scratched his neck. "Yeah, simple. The bed is wide enough," she said. "We can rest without disturbing each other." "Right," he said. "And we're teammates. It shouldn't be weird." Her eyes softened slightly. "We handled a plasma surge together. We can handle this." He let out a small breath. "True." Lyra placed her tools neatly in the corner and sat on the edge of the bed, testing the surface. Evan sat on the opposite side, leaving space between them. The room was quiet, but not uncomfortable. The air felt lighter than before, and even the ship's hum sounded calmer. For the first time since he arrived, Evan felt like maybe this assignment wouldn't be as difficult as he feared. Maybe working with Lyra wouldn't just be possible. It might actually be good. As he settled back, Lyra glanced at him with calm eyes. "We will work well together. I can sense that." He nodded. "Yeah, me too." For the first time, the single bed didn't feel like a problem. It felt like the start of something unexpected, something neither of them had planned, but both were willing to face together. The next morning on the Valiant Horizon felt strangely quiet for both Evan and Lyra. The ship always hummed with engines and movement, but inside cabin 4B22, the quietness had a different meaning. It felt like the cabin was adjusting to them, accepting the 2 engineers who now shared the space. Evan woke first. He blinked at the soft ceiling lights that slowly brightened to mimic morning. His mind took a moment to remember where he was. The engineering summons from yesterday, the plasma instability, and then, sharing the bed. He turned his head slightly and saw Lyra sleeping on the other side of the bed, facing away from him. She rested completely still, her breathing slow and calm. Even asleep, she held a kind of controlled grace. He sat up carefully, not wanting to disturb her, and quietly moved to the desk to check his schedule. A few minutes later, Lyra stirred. She opened her glowing eyes slowly and looked around, as if orienting herself. When she noticed Evan already awake, she gave a small nod. "You rise early," she said softly. "Sorry if I woke you," he replied. "You did not." She sat up straight, her movements smooth. "Cyrillans require less sleep than humans." He smiled a little. "That explains why you look so calm this early." "Calmness is a habit," she said. "Stress wastes energy." "Well, humans are very good at wasting energy," he joked. Lyra gave a faint tilt of her lips, the closest she came to a smile. "Yes, I have noticed." They prepared for their shift, working around each other in the small cabin, with a surprising amount of coordination for two people who barely knew one another. Lyra moved quickly, packing her tools with practiced precision. Evan arranged his equipment more casually, but he worked quietly, not wanting to disrupt her focus. As they stepped into the hallway, they walked side by side. Even though they had only spent a day together, their steps matched naturally. When they entered the engineering bay, the chief engineer, an older human named Marcus Wren, called for them immediately. "Hail. Ven. You two handled the plasma surge yesterday. Good work," he said, wiping his hands on a towel. His eyes narrowed with curiosity. "How long have you been a pair?" "1 day," Lyra answered calmly. Wren raised his eyebrows. "Only one? You worked like you've been a team for months." Evan rubbed the back of his neck. We try." "Keep trying," Wren said. "We need engineers who communicate without shouting." Evan glanced at Lyra. She seemed unaffected, but something in her eyes showed quiet satisfaction. The day's tasks were long and technical. The ship needed recalibrations, coolant checks, and maintenance on the Taurus stabilizers. Lyra handled the delicate parts, while Evan worked on the heavy components. It felt smooth, almost natural. Whenever one of them reached for a tool, the other would hand it over without even being asked. When one made an adjustment, the other followed with a supporting step. At one point, a young human tech, Jalen, watched them from a distance with wide eyes. "Are you two reading each other's minds?" he finally asked. "No," Lyra replied simply. "We just communicate well," Evan added. "Looks more like telepathy," Jalen muttered under his breath. Lyra didn't respond, but Evan noticed the faint glow of her eyes soften slightly. She wasn't annoyed, just thoughtful. Later in the afternoon, Wren approached them again. "I have a special task for your team," he said. "We've detected irregular energy patterns near the shield core. I want you two to investigate." Lyra nodded. "We will handle it." Evan tried to hide his excitement and nervousness at the same time. The shield core was one of the most sensitive parts of the ship. If something went wrong there, it could cause major problems. They walked into the narrow section of the ship that housed the shield core chamber. The lights were dimmer here, and the sound of energy pulsed through the walls like a deep heartbeat. Lyra scanned the readings. "There is fluctuation, but minor." "Minor now," Evan said, checking the panel. "But if the slope climbs like yesterday's, we'll have a problem." "We will prevent that," she replied. They worked together again, carefully analyzing the energy lines. Lyra stood close as they looked over the control panel. Evan noticed she always kept her posture straight, every move controlled. He wondered what her life was like on her home planet, how she trained, how she learned, whether she ever struggled with anything the way humans did. While they adjusted a power relay, the ship suddenly gave a light shudder. Evan grabbed the edge of the panel to steady himself. Lyra grabbed the wall railing. A moment later, the lights flickered. "That was not normal," Evan said. "No," Lyra replied. "Something shifted power flow." Evan checked the readings, his eyes narrowing. "A feedback loop. It's feeding into the stabilizer." Lyra stepped forward and reached into the control housing. "It is unstable. If it continues, we'll have a real problem," Evan finished. "We need to break the loop." Lyra turned her head to him. "You handle the outer relay. I will disconnect the inner line." 41. "Got it." They moved quickly, both fully focused. Evan pulled open the side panel and gripped the relay module. As he worked, he could hear Lyra's tools clicking inside the core housing, her movements precise and fast. The energy pulse grew louder. "Hurry," Lyra said. "I'm trying this relay's stuck." "Apply more pressure at the top left corner," she instructed. He pressed harder. The module gave a sharp click. "Got it. Disconnect now." He pulled the relay free at the same moment Lyra severed the inner line. The energy readings dropped instantly, stabilizing into normal levels. Evan let out a deep breath. That was close. Lyra stepped back, brushing dust from her hands. "You applied the correct force at the right time. That prevented a cascade failure. You guided me," he said with a grin. "Good teamwork." Her glowing eyes met his for a brief second. "Yes, good teamwork." They returned to the engineering bay with their report. Ren nodded after hearing the details. "You two are becoming the strongest pair in engineering. Keep it up." Evan felt warmth in his chest at the praise. Lyra didn't show much emotion, but she gave a small nod, which for her probably meant she felt the same. After their shift ended, they walked back to their cabin. The hallway was busier now as people ended their workday. Evan noticed some crew members glancing at Lyra out of curiosity. Cyrillans still weren't common on human ships. He wondered if she noticed the stares, but her expression stayed steady. Inside the cabin, the quiet wrapped around them again. Lyra placed her tools on the desk and turned to him. "You worked well today." "So did you," Evan said. "I think we're starting to understand each other's style." "It is important," she said. "Engineers must trust one another, otherwise mistakes grow." He nodded slowly. "You know, I didn't think sharing a room with someone I just met would be this easy." She tilted her head slightly. "Do you still find it uncomfortable?" "Less now," he admitted. "You're calm." "It helps." "Less now." "You're calm. And you adapt quickly," she said. "That helps as well." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It felt like a quiet understanding. They prepared to rest, both moving around the small cabin with more ease than the day before. Evan placed his uniform on the chair. Lyra folded her jacket carefully and placed it on the shelf. When they finally sat on the bed, Evan tried not to look too uncertain. "We can keep the same sleeping sides as yesterday," she said gently. "Yeah," he replied. "That works." They lay down slowly, keeping a respectful distance. Lyra rested with her hands folded lightly over her chest. Evan turned slightly toward the wall, giving her space. After a moment, she spoke softly. "You breathe differently when you are worried." He froze. "Is it that obvious?" "I observed it during the Shield Corps incident," she said. "Your breathing grows faster when you think you might make a mistake." He felt embarrassed for a moment. "Sorry. There is no need to apologize," she replied. "Fear of mistakes means you care about the result. It is not a weakness." He turned his head slightly toward her. "What about you? Do you ever worry?" "Of course," she said softly. "But Cyrillan tradition teaches us to keep our emotions quiet until the task is complete." "Sounds hard." "Sometimes," she admitted, "but sometimes useful." Evan let out a gentle breath. "Thanks for saying that. Makes me feel less human." "You are human," she said, "and that is not negative. Humans bring instinct, creativity, and unpredictability. Cyrillans value these qualities." He felt a small warmth in his chest again. "And Cyrillans bring calm. And logic," she added. "Together that's a pretty good balance." "Yes," she said. "A good balance." The lights dimmed. The ship hummed around them like a distant heartbeat. Evan closed his eyes slowly, feeling less tense than the night before. Even though they came from different worlds, with different habits and different cultures, sharing the room didn't feel strange anymore. It felt like the beginning of a partnership the ship needed, and maybe something more quietly meaningful, something neither of them could name yet. As sleep crept closer, Lyra's calm voice whispered into the quiet. "We will work even better tomorrow." Evan smiled softly in the dark. "Yeah, we will." And slowly, both of them drifted into a peaceful rest. The next few days passed in a steady rhythm for Evan and Lyra. Every morning they woke in the same cabin, getting used to the quiet warmth of the shared space. Every afternoon they worked side by side in the engineering bay, moving with growing confidence as a team. And every night, they returned to the same bed. Careful, respectful, and aware that the strange situation was turning into something more natural than either expected. The rest of the crew started noticing. Whenever Evan and Lyra walked into a room together, people moved aside with small, curious glances. Some whispered. Some simply watched. Human and Cyrillan pairs were still uncommon, especially on military ships, and many crew members had never seen such smooth cooperation between two species so different in habit and culture. But Evan didn't mind the attention. He was too busy trying to keep up with Lyra's precision and steady focus. Today, however, the ship did not give them a normal workday. At midday, an alarm rang through the engineering deck. Not a soft warning tone like before this one, had a sharp rising note that echoed against the metal walls with urgency. Wren, the chief engineer, shouted, "Everyone to stations! We have incoming debris! Impact risk in Sector 3! Evan felt his chest tighten. Sector 3 housed shield lines and coolant pipes. Damage there would be dangerous. Lyra immediately stepped toward the panel. "Show the projected path." A hologram appeared above the control table, showing a cluster of fast-moving debris heading straight toward the ship's side. The larger pieces glowed yellow, meaning they could cause harm. Wren looked at Evan and Lyra. "You two are the fastest pair we've got. Get to Sector 3. Check for pressure weak points. And reinforce whatever you can before impact." Lyra nodded. "Understood." Evan grabbed his toolkit and followed her at a run. The hallway lights flashed red as they moved through the corridors. His heartbeat matched the rhythm of the alarms. When they reached Sector 3, they found the main corridor empty. Most crew members had sealed themselves in safer areas. Lyra scanned the wall panels quickly. "Pressure lines are stable for now, but the shock may shift them. We should brace this section," Evan said, pointing to a coolant artery on the left wall. "If it takes a hit, the ripple will spread." Lyra agreed immediately. "I will secure the top. You take the bottom." They knelt beside the large line and began fastening clamps and locks. Their movements were fast, coordinated, almost like a dance. Evan noticed that Lyra's hands moved with more force than he expected for someone who looked so calm all the time. She controlled that force with precision. Minutes passed, and the ship gave a small tremble. "That was a warning shake," Lyra said. "Minor debris." Evan tightened the next clamp. "How long until the big pieces hit?" 3 minutes, she replied. They moved to the next line, then the next, working in silence except for the clang of tools and the sharp tap of metal on metal. Sector 3 was long, and each line had to be reinforced. Evan's arms burned, but he kept going. Sweat gathered at his forehead even in the cool air of the ship. Lyra worked faster than before, her glowing eyes moving from reading to reading with lightning focus. Evan could almost feel the intensity behind her calm face. A loud vibration ran through the floor. "That was medium debris," Lyra said, her voice steadier than Evan's pulse. "How many seconds left?" Evan asked. "Less than 1 minute." They worked faster, but then the ship shook hard, so hard that Evan lost his grip and stumbled. Tools scattered as the wall jerked violently. Lyra grabbed the wall rail, steadying herself, but she slid toward him when the ship tilted. Evan reached out instinctively and caught her before she hit the deck. They froze for half a breath, his hands around her arms, her face only inches from his. The ship trembled again, snapping them back to duty. "Impact starting," Lyra said. They rushed to secure the last coolant line. Energy pulsed through the walls as something huge crashed against the ship's exterior. Alarms flared louder. The lights flickered. "Hold it steady," Evan said, gripping the last clamp. Lyra pressed the final lock in place just as another impact rattled the deck. The line held, the pressure reading stabilized. Evan let out a shaky breath. "We made it." "Not yet," Lyra said calmly. "More debris incoming." She pointed toward the control console on the side wall. They hurried toward it. Lyra checked the readings, and then turned to him. "We need to absorb some of the shock through the backup panel." "Absorb?" Evan repeated. "That sounds painful." She didn't smile, but her eyes glowed with something like quiet amusement. "For the ship, not for us." "Oh, good." The floor vibrated again as another impact shook the hull. This time, a loud crack echoed from somewhere above them. Evan looked up. "That didn't sound good." "That was a support strut," Lyra said. "We must reinforce the frame." "Before it collapses," Evan added. They hurried toward the ladder leading to the upper walkway. Lyra climbed first with swift movements. Evan right behind her, gripping the cold metal rungs. At the top, they found the source. A large support bar had bent inward from the pressure. Evan whistled under his breath. "That thing could fall, which is why we must prevent it," Lyra replied. They positioned a stabilizer brace under the bent bar. Lyra held the brace steady while Evan tightened it with all his strength. "Hurry," she said softly. "The pressure in this section is rising." "I'm going as fast as I can," he said, breathless. "You can go faster," she said calmly. He tried. Sweat dripped down his cheek. Another vibration shook the frame, but this time the brace held. The bar stopped bending. "Pressure stabilized," Lyra said. "We succeeded. For now," Evan replied. A long, heavy vibration rolled through the ship like the end of a storm. Then, silence. The alarms stopped. The emergency lights faded back to normal brightness. Lyra checked the panel again. "The debris wave has passed." Evan leaned back against the railing, exhaustion running through him. "That was intense." "You adapted well," Lyra said. "Your speed increased under pressure." "That's one way of saying I panicked correctly," he said with a tired laugh. "Panic can motivate speed," she replied in a gentle voice. They made their way down the ladder slowly. The adrenaline was fading, leaving a heavy tiredness behind. As they walked back to the engineering bay, some crew members clapped when they passed. Word traveled fast on a ship. 2 engineers running into danger to keep the shields and coolant lines stable had not gone unnoticed. Jalen rushed up to them. "Chief Wren said you 2 saved Sector 3. You prevented a full shutdown." Evan waved a hand weakly. "We just did what we had to." Lyra bowed her head slightly. "The ship is safe. That is what matters." Wren approached them with a rare grin. "You 2 are unbelievable. I'm recommending both of you for commendations." Evan blinked. "Seriously? You earned it," Wren said. Lyra simply nodded, accepting the praise with calm dignity. Their shift ended late, and they returned to their cabin exhausted. Evan sat heavily on the bed and rubbed the back of his neck. Lyra placed her tools on the shelf but moved slowly, fatigue finally visible in her shoulders. "That was the hardest day so far," Evan said. "Yes," she agreed, "but also the most successful." He looked at her for a moment. "I'm glad you were there." "You would have managed," she said. He shook his head. "Not like that. Not as fast. Not as safely." She stepped closer to him, her glowing eyes steady. "And I am glad you were there. Your decisions were correct at critical moments. Alone, I might have needed more time. Together, we needed just enough time," he said. She nodded softly. "Yes, together." The room felt warmer than usual. Not physically, emotionally. They prepared to rest, moving with slow, tired steps. When they lay down on the bed, neither talked for a while. The silence was easy, like 2 people who had shared a long journey. After several minutes, Evan spoke in a low voice. "Lyra, were you scared today?" She took a moment before answering. "I felt urgency. That is the Cyrillin way of expressing fear." "I thought I saw something like fear in your eyes," he said quietly. "You observed correctly," she admitted. "But the presence of a trusted partner reduces fear." He turned his head slightly toward her. "I'm glad I could be that for you." She looked at him for a moment, her glowing eyes softer than he'd ever seen them. "You are becoming important to this mission," she said. "And to me." Evan's breath caught lightly, surprised by how gently she said it. "Same here," he whispered. "You're important to me too." They rested quietly after that, the hum of the ship surrounding them like a soft lullaby. The day had pushed them closer not because they shared a room, not because they worked together, but because they survived something dangerous, side by side, trusting one another completely. As they drifted into sleep, both felt something new forming in the quiet space between them, something steady, unspoken, and real. The next morning came with a soft light rising from the cabin ceiling, and a gentle vibration of the ship, moving on its usual course. After the intense events of the previous day, the quiet felt almost unreal, like the ship itself was trying to give Evan and Lyra a moment to breathe. Evan opened his eyes slowly. For a few seconds, he didn't move. He listened to the low hum around him and felt the warm air of the cabin. Then, he turned his head slightly and saw Lyra, already awake. She wasn't sitting or moving. She was simply lying still, her eyes open, her expression calm but thoughtful. He whispered, "Morning." She turned her glowing eyes toward him. "Good morning." He sat up slowly, stretching his tired shoulders. "How long have you been awake?" "Not long," she said. "I was thinking." "About yesterday?" "Yes." She shifted slightly, her voice softer than usual. "Sector 3 would have suffered heavy damage if we had been slower." "We were fortunate," Evan exhaled. "Yeah. That moment when the ship shook, I really thought we were going to be crushed." "You reacted quickly," she said. "Your instincts saved time we did not have." "You kept me steady," he said. "Every time I was about to panic, I heard your voice, and it helped." Lyra held his gaze for a moment longer than usual. There was something warm in her expression, a quiet respect mixed with something deeper. They got ready for their shift, but both moved slower than usual. Their bodies were still recovering from the stress of running, climbing, and fighting against machinery that wanted to break apart. When they walked into the engineering bay, the whole room paused for a second. People looked up, nodding toward them with respect. Some even smiled. The story of their teamwork during the debris strike had spread, and everyone now saw them not as two strangers forced to share a room, but as a powerful pair. Ren walked over with a wide grin. "There you are, heroes of Sector 3. Evan flushed a little. "We're not heroes. You prevented a chain reaction shutdown," Ren said. "That alone qualifies you." Lyra bowed her head slightly. "We only acted as needed." "Exactly," Ren said. "You acted. That's why you two make a strong team." He handed each of them a small digital badge. "Temporary commendation markers. Final approval will come later." Evan turned the badge in his hand, surprised by how proud he felt. Lyra examined hers with quiet interest. Ren clapped them on the shoulders. "Now don't get too comfortable. We're still a military ship. Work never ends." And so their shift began, but today was different. The air felt lighter. The crew looked more relaxed. And every task they worked on felt easier. Maybe because they had faced something much harder already. By midday, they were working on coolant alignment in the upper deck. It wasn't dangerous, just tiring. Evan tightened a bolt while Lyra checked the readings. "You are still tired," she said gently. "So are you," he replied. She nodded. "Yes. But Cyralan bodies recover quickly." He wiped sweat from his forehead. "Humans don't recover as fast. We just pretend we do." She gave a small, soft laugh, something he rarely heard from her. It made him smile. They worked in silence again for a few minutes until Lyra looked at him. "Evan." "Yeah? I have been considering something," she said, voice thoughtful. "Our shared room. Our shared work. Our shared challenges." He felt his heart beat a little faster. "Okay. When I look at our time together," she continued, "I do not see discomfort anymore. I see efficiency. Support. Balance." Evan nodded slowly. "I feel that too." She lowered her eyes briefly. "At first, sharing a room with a stranger was a test for both of us. But now, you do not feel like a stranger." He swallowed lightly. "You don't feel like a stranger to me either." Another engineer walked by, interrupting the moment. and Lyra turned back to the panel. But Evan did not forget her words. Later in the day, Ren called them again. "I need you two to check the shield modulator. It's acting strange again." Lyra and Evan exchanged a knowing glance. Trouble always seemed to find them. They made their way to the shield chamber, walking side by side. When they reached it, the readings were indeed strange. The modulator pulsed unevenly, sending small tremors through the floor. Lyra crouched to examine the energy node. "The stabilizer core is shifting again." Evan knelt beside her. "Same problem as before?" "No," she said. "Something new, something unfamiliar." He frowned. "Can we fix it?" "Possibly. But it will require both of us once more." Their hands moved together as they opened the housing, revealing glowing circuits inside. The energy shimmered like liquid light, and the air around them warmed. Evan pointed at a crack forming in the stabilizer coil. "Lyra, this is bad." "Yes," she said. "But manageable." Together, they braced the housing and began aligning the circuits. The energy surged lightly, pushing back at their hands. "Careful," Lyra said. "It reacts to pressure." "Like a stubborn animal," Evan replied. "Then speak gently to it," she said calmly. He laughed softly as he guided his tool, matching the rhythm of her movements. With every adjustment, the energy glow softened, as if responding to the calmness they brought. Finally, the stabilizer clicked back into place. The readings leveled. "There," she said. "It is steady." Evan let out a breath. "We did it again." "When balance is found between calm and instinct," Lyra replied, "solutions appear." Her words lingered in his mind. They returned to their cabin at the end of a long shift. As the door slid closed behind them, the small space felt warm, familiar, almost comforting. Evan sat on the bed first. Lyra stood at the desk for a moment, placing her tools down carefully. Then she turned toward him. "Evan," she said softly. He looked up. "Yeah?" She stepped closer, slow and deliberate, until she stood near the edge of the bed. "Our time together has changed us," she said. "I can feel it." He nodded, his chest feeling tight with something he couldn't describe. "Me too. You have become important to me," she continued, her voice gentle and vulnerable in a way he had never heard before. "More important than I expected in such a short time." He swallowed softly. "You're important to me too, Lyra. Really important." She lowered her eyes for a moment, then met his gaze again. "Yesterday, when the ship shook and you caught me, I felt something unusual." "Fear?" he asked quietly. "No," she said. "Relief. Connection. Trust." He felt his breath tremble. "I am not used to trusting so quickly," she continued. "But with you, it happens naturally." He felt warmth flood through him. "I trust you too, completely." Silence settled between them, not heavy, but full of meaning. Lyra sat next to him, her movements slow and gentle. The soft lights of the cabin reflected in her faintly glowing eyes. The shared bed behind them, something that once felt uncomfortable, now felt like a symbol of everything they had learned together. "You know," Evan said softly, "now that I think about it, the Alliance made a smart choice pairing us." "Yes," she said, "they did." He turned slightly toward her. "Even the bed doesn't feel strange anymore." Her voice became even softer. "Because sharing space with someone you trust is easier." He nodded. "A lot easier." "A lot easier." A long moment passed. The hum of the ship filled the background like a gentle heartbeat. Then Lyra spoke again. "Evan, if you are comfortable, I would like to continue sharing this space. Not because we must, but because I wish to." He felt something in his chest, open, quiet, warm, steady. "I want that too." They sat together in quiet understanding. No tension, no awkwardness. Just two people from different worlds who found balance, trust, and something deeper than they expected. When they finally lay down in the bed, they rested closer than before. Not touching, but comfortable, relaxed, aware of each other's presence. In a peaceful way, the ship hummed around them as they drifted into rest. And Evan realized something with a calm certainty. Sharing a room had begun as a mistake of the assignment system, but now, it felt like the most right thing on the entire ship. Lyra closed her eyes slowly, her voice soft as a whisper. We will face every challenge like this. Together. Evan smiled in the dim light. Together. And as the valiant Horizon sailed quietly through the stars, 2 engineers, 1 human, 1 alien, rested side by side, ready for whatever the galaxy brought next, strengthened by a partnership that had grown into trust, and trust that had grown into something far more meaningful.